gone to Unsplash and we've downloaded 2 or 3 files that we want to work with, and we've also downloaded the PNG, which is this cool handwritten text that I made. And the whole project is just to combine these into a blog header. Now you can combine as many as you want, and I would encourage you to find different themes that you think relate to the website or to your ideas. There's no reason why you have to search for the things that I've searched for. All right, so I'm going to start by using this one because a blog header is usually horizontal, so I want this to be the main canvas. This one that I've downloaded is vertical, so I want that to be, so I want to copy from this one and then bring it into the other one. I never work without my layers palette open, so there it is. Layer 0 is the image, and I want to copy it, go into this one and paste it, Command C, Command V, and you can see there's a little mismatch of the sizes. So while I'm here, I'm checking my layers palette and I can see that I have background in layer 1, and then I'll do a Command T for transform. When you transform and these image sizes are pretty mismatched, then it's really good to make sure that you can zoom, because if you couldn't zoom out, there's no way that you could handle this transform. All right, so I'm able to zoom out. I'm doing a big transform, and I'm also just kind of eyeballing this because I want the trees to line up with the lightning. So I think that's kind of interesting. The lightning reminds me of, or the position of the tree reminds me of the storm cloud. But I have plenty of chances to redo it. It might be also cool to use the roots instead. Actually, that is what I'm going to do. That looks really cool. Yeah. So okay. So we have these. We have kind of a compositional idea in place, and I've double-clicked the background to make it a layer. And now what I want to do is bring in the text that we have too. All right, so this is the PNG file that you have. Command A, just follow that same sequence. Command C for copy. Go into whatever you're using as your main file, and Command V, and then Command T for transform. So you can see how often I use this, right? Now you'll notice that mine transforms proportionally, which is the default for Photoshop 2020. But in older versions of Photoshop, it would skew. So figure out which one that you have, and I almost always want to transform proportionally. If you have the old one where transform proportionally is not the default, then you need to add shift to that sequence. All right, so I have basically my 3 basic concepts, but you might have more in your layers. But they get to a point of saturation where that you can't see the images and everything is just kind of turning black. And now the first thing that we're going to do here is obviously with my layers open, and then you can right click an empty space in the layers palette, change it to large thumbnails. That's always really helpful. And one of the most critical things about Photoshop is you'll be mixing images together, and this is more important than selection sets, which we'll study in detail too. It's just exploring transparency settings. This can be so powerful. So see how they have lines between them? So that means you're searching by kind. The first group is all things that darken it. The second group is all things that lighten it, right? And then the third, so it's transparency mixing according to darkness, transparency mixing according to lightness. And then the third group is a middle ground overlay. And then the fourth group is reversals. So you can see kind of like my colors looking crazy here. And then the fifth group is, I always think of it kind of as just color. So you can see I can't really see the second image there at all. I think that what I am leaning towards is the lighten group. That is the one that I like, right? Now, using the move tool, and of course, with the move tool, it has a setting called auto select layer, and you want that to be off because you want to control the composition through the selection. So you can sort of figure out what is going to work here. Um, Gosh, I'm not sure. I'm not really liking how this came out. Um, Kind of like that tree going over that island. That's pretty cool. And then the other thing that you can do is then lower the opacity. So, all right, so something like that, right? Now, I think a little bit that these images are interfering with each other, not necessarily complementing each other. So I'm going to go to the layer, and this only works if it's a layer, not a background. And I'm going to transform my lightning layer just to get some more lightning, because I think that is looking cool. And I think if I have some more lightning, it'll be a little more clear. All right, now I'm going back to this layer and playing with the opacity again. Okay, now I really like what I have. And of course, I can then go to this layer, and I can play with the mixture of the text as well. Um, so difference makes it turn blue. That's pretty cool. So I think that I will do that. Um, cool. Then I'll put that there over the light, and then the difference really interacts with the lightning, and the text is difficult to read anyway, but you know, okay, so that is kind of something that I like. Now I have this weird feeling of trees and a lightning storm kind of equally mixed, and I really like that. All right, so now we might also explore a color layer. I will add another layer, and that's just layer plus right there. And then remember our talk about redundancy in Photoshop, so you can add a layer there, or anything you want to do with a layer menu. Anything you want to do with a layer is also in the layer menu, right? So layer, new layer, and you can memorize the key command if you want. Shift Command N, but this is one of those times when I think that this little button is faster. Um, all right, so now this layer, I'm going to just set it to color, because the theme of my website is the color blue, right? Like that's a major theme. So I'm gonna set the layer to color, and then I'm gonna choose paintbrush. And if you right click, you can bring up this menu and increase the size. So I don't really care too much about this. Oops, it's a little too big. But I'm just using a sort of transparent paintbrush, and I can change the opacity up here, and then I can color the images underneath. Now this is a lot different than adding color, right? All it's doing is adding kind of a color filter to everything else that's there. I might just work with the opacity a little more. Then the color will come out a little more vivid, right? And I'm just sort of going with my theme there. So if you want to, I love this orange and the blue together. Cool, that's kind of cool. Well, I'm not super happy with this, but you see where it's going. So your project number one is just to layer some images from Unsplash and create a header of this type, and make sure that you can navigate the layers like we have here, and work with different kinds of transparency as you do that, right? And just I think transparency and seeing how cool two images can be on top of each other is just really, really interesting, right? So see if I want these clouds to come back a little bit. I might go back to my tree layer, which we know is transparent, and I might pick an eraser, and then I might lower the opacity of the eraser, and then I can sort of control what I see, right? So now I want to see more clouds, right? And there's no way to make the tree more dominant in the same way because the tree is transparent and the clouds are not, right? So I'm erasing through this layer so I can see more of this layer. So cool. I really, really like that. And I really like the weirdness of the blue roots. Like, that's pretty cool. But I like trees so much as a theme that maybe I will, sort of go back to my eraser and back out of that. All right. So, I mean, anyways, as you can see, now I'm to the point where, I'm just having fun and I am able to navigate my layers. And another thing that you can do while you are doing this, remember the whole thing of Photoshop, the whole mastery of Photoshop is just mastering your layers. So if you really want to, so if you're having fun with the creative part, that's great. But if you want to be technical and grow, you can name your layers. Storm. So that is a storm. That is a tree, right? That is color layer, and that is the type, right? Okay, now this is really easy to navigate when there's only 4, but it's going to be everyone that works on Photoshop ends up with hundreds and hundreds, so it gets pretty crazy sometimes. And the other thing that I should mention is that you can merge layers together. That command is Command E, so that will press one layer down into the other. But see, that screwed me up because they had different transparency settings. So I lost my text all of a sudden. So I wouldn't, but sometimes, they can merge successfully. If you want to make your file smaller, ooh, I kind of like that merge there. If you want to make your file smaller and see what the output is like, you can always merge your layers. You can also group layers. You hold Shift and select multiple layers, and then you do Command G and you group layers. All right, so to finish this assignment, you go to Image. I think make sure it's horizontal because it just won't look good as a blog header if it's a big vertical image. So go to Image and Image Size, and then just check on the final size of the image. 2,640 pixels, and of course you can see it in inches too. The inches might not match the pixels, but everything on the web is in pixels anyways. So I think a good size for a header is under 2,000. So 1,500 I think is kind of sensible because it means that it won't slow down your website too much. Cool. And then finally, I will go File, Save As, and I'm saving it to my computer, and then I'm going to save it as a, well, I'll just do it quickly. You can save it however you wish, but I'll call this blog header. Blog header, and then you don't want it to be Photoshop, you want it to be a JPEG. That code is JPG, and then it will ask you how much you want to compress it, and compress it as much as you can on the web. I like staying with high because basically the image is so large you won't really notice the compression that much anyways. All right, so then you have this really cool compressed image. You've output it, you've checked the size, you've managed the layers, you've made some groups, and you've experimented with transparency. And then go ahead and take that and upload it to the assignment, and that is that part of the assignment finished.